She never imagined that 5 careless seconds would reroute her entire life. It was a Tuesday night in South Brooklyn, the kind that felt heavier than it should have. Cold mist hung in the air, clinging to streetlights and asphalt, turning everything slick and uncertain. Claire Morgan tightened her grip on the steering wheel of her aging silver hatchback, jaw clenched, eyes burning from a 12-hour shift she could barely remember finishing. All she wanted was coffee. Cheap, strong, no questions asked. The parking space outside Riverside Grill was barely wide enough for confidence, let alone exhaustion. Claire eased forward, breath shallow, mirrors fogged, heart already racing for no reason at all. Then, scrape! The sound ripped through the quiet street like a blade, her entire body locked. "No, no, no," she whispered, already knowing. She shut her eyes for half a second. Just one, as if that might rewind time. When she stepped out, rain soaking the cuffs of her jeans, the truth waited for her under the yellow street lamp. A black luxury sedan, low, polished, immaculate, the kind of car that didn't belong on this block or near someone like her. And now, stretched across its rear door like a wound, was a long, pale scar of exposed metal. Claire's stomach dropped so hard it felt physical. "This is bad," she breathed. Her eyes darted up and down the street, empty. The diner nearly deserted, no pedestrians, no shouting, no alarms, just drizzle tapping softly against steel and glass. A voice crept into her head, cold and practical. "Get back in the car, drive away." No one saw. Her rent was overdue, her bank account was a joke. The repair on a car like this would cost more than she earned in a month, maybe 2. She stared at her reflection in the sedan's dark window. Pale face, tired eyes, hair shoved into a careless knot. She looked painfully small next to something so expensive. She thought of her father's voice years ago, quiet but unbreakable. "If you can live with the truth, you sleep better." Claire swallowed. With numb fingers, she dug through her worn canvas bag until she found a folded notepad from the diner, grease-stained, logo crooked at the top. She braced it against her own car and wrote, rain blurring the ink, "I'm so sorry. I accidentally scratched your car while parking. My name is Claire Morgan. I work at Riverside Grill. I don't have much, but I will take responsibility. Please call me. 917-555-2048. She hesitated, then underlined her name. Carefully, almost reverently, she slid the note beneath the windshield wiper. Her chest felt tight but strangely calm. She had done the one thing she could live with. 2 hours later, the street didn't belong to her anymore. A black SUV rolled in first. Then another car blocked the corner. Doors opened quietly. Men stepped out, sharp-eyed, deliberate, dressed dark and expensive without trying to be noticed. Then he arrived. Marco DeLuca stepped onto the wet pavement without a coat, cuffs rolled, presence heavy enough to bend the night around him. He didn't rush, didn't speak. His men straightened instinctively. He walked toward the sedan, stopped. His gaze followed the curve of the car until it landed on the scratch. Silence tightened. One of the men muttered a curse. Marco reached out and pulled the folded paper from beneath the wiper. He read it once, then again. His expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. People ran from damage like this. They lied. They disappeared. They didn't leave names. Marco folded the note slowly and slipped it into his jacket. "Get the camera footage," he said calmly. "Every angle." He glanced toward the diner across the street, its flickering sign buzzing softly in the mist. For the first time that night, Marco DeLuca smiled. Not because of the scratch, but because the girl who caused it had just walked straight into his world. Without knowing what it would cost her, Claire didn't see the black SUV. Not when she wiped down the counter for the 3rd time. Not when she refilled coffee mugs that didn't need refilling. Not when the bell over the diner door rang and her stomach tightened for reasons she couldn't explain. She felt it first. The air changed, the low, unconscious silence that spreads when people sense power before they understand it. Marcus, the cook, stopped mid-sentence in the kitchen. Kayla, sliding into the booth across from Claire, froze with her phone halfway to the table. "Don't look now," Kayla whispered, eyes wide. "But I think someone important just walked in." Claire turned. 4 men entered first. Dark jackets, controlled movements. Not flashy, worse, the kind of men who didn't need to announce themselves. They scanned the room with calm precision, already knowing what they would do if something went wrong. Then he stepped inside. Marco DeLuca didn't raise his voice, didn't hurry, he didn't need to. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a fitted charcoal shirt with the sleeves rolled just enough to show forearms that spoke of discipline, not decoration. His hair was dark, cut clean, beard trimmed short. His eyes, dark, steady, moved across the diner like they were reading something invisible. And then they stopped, on her. Claire felt it like a physical hit. Her heart skipped, then started racing hard enough to make her dizzy. She didn't know why this man was looking at her, but she knew, deep in her bones, that he hadn't come for pancakes. He walked to the counter. Didn't sit, didn't smile. "You're Claire Morgan," he said. It wasn't a question. Her mouth went dry. Yes." He reached into his jacket and placed something on the counter between them. The note. Her note. The paper looked smaller than she remembered, more fragile, like proof of a bad decision she couldn't undo. "You scratched my car," Marco said calmly. I know," she said quickly. "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean—" "You left your name," he continued, eyes never leaving her face. "Your workplace, your number." She nodded. "I didn't want to lie." That earned her a pause, not approval, not disapproval, consideration. "How much do you make here?" he asked. The question hit her sideways. "What?" "Hourly," he clarified, "plus tips." "That's personal." "So is my car," he replied evenly. Claire swallowed. "Not enough to fix a car like yours, I know that." Marco leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on the counter. The distance between them shrank, and suddenly she was aware of everything. His height, his stillness, the way his presence seemed to quiet the room. "The repair costs more than 2 months of your income," he said. Her stomach twisted. "I'll pay. Not all at once, but I will." "I don't want your money." She blinked. "Then, what do you want?" For the first time, something unreadable crossed his face. "I want you to work for me." The words didn't register at first. "Work for you?" "Yes." Kayla made a choking sound behind her. Marco continued, voice calm, controlled. "Part-time, flexible. You assist at private dinners and events. You stay near me. You follow instructions." "And the car?" Claire asked quietly. "Consider it handled." Her pulse thundered in her ears. "I don't belong in your world." "You already stepped into it," he said. "The question is whether you do it protected or not, or alone." She hesitated. "And if I say no?" His answer came instantly. "Then you pay for the repair, in full." "I can't. I know." Silence stretched. Claire looked down at the counter, at her shaking hands, at the note that started all of this. "What kind of man are you?" she asked softly. Marco studied her for a long moment. "An honest one," he said, "which is more than most people you'll meet tonight." He slid a black card toward her. "My driver," he added. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m. outside this diner." She stared at the card like it might bite her. Then she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it." Marco straightened. "Good." He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, he said quietly. Next time you're scared, don't run. Look at me. The door closed behind him. The diner exhaled. Kayla grabbed Claire's arm. Please tell me you did not just agree to work for a mafia boss. Claire stared at the black card in her hand. I think, she said slowly, I just traded a scratch for a life I don't recognize. At 6:58 p.m., Claire Morgan stood on the cracked sidewalk outside Riverside Grill, clutching her bag like it was the only solid thing left in her life. She'd spent the entire day replaying his voice in her head. Look at me. Every instinct screamed that agreeing had been a mistake. Normal people didn't get black cards. They didn't get picked up by drivers. They didn't get pulled into the orbit of men whose silence felt heavier than shouting. A black SUV rolled up to the curb and stopped with surgical precision. The driver stepped out tall, clean-cut, eyes alert. Miss Morgan, he said. I'm Alex, please follow me. Her stomach flipped as she climbed inside. The door closed with a soft, final sound. As the SUV moved through the city, Claire pressed her forehead lightly against the cool glass. Neighborhoods blurred past, then changed. Brick buildings gave way to glass. Corner stores to guarded entrances. Casual restaurants to velvet ropes and men in tailored coats. This was not a tour. This was a transition. The SUV stopped in front of the Black Crown, a private club tucked behind mirrored windows and gold-toned lights. No sign, no line, just presence. Security opened the doors instantly. Inside, everything smelled like polished wood and expensive cologne. The floors gleamed. The lighting was low and deliberate. Voices murmured with purpose. Claire's palms were slick with sweat. An elevator waited at the end of the hall. Alex pressed the top floor button. The doors opened to a private lounge, and Marco DeLuca. He stood near the bar, sleeves rolled, pouring himself a glass of water. No suit, no entourage, just him, controlled, calm, completely at home. He looked up when she entered. You're on time, he said. I didn't want to give you a reason to change your mind, she replied. A corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. You look nervous. I am. Good, he said. Nervous people pay attention. He gestured for her to follow him. Tonight is simple, Marco continued as they walked. Small dinner, private guests. You serve drinks, stay close and listen. You don't speak unless spoken to. Claire nodded quickly. Understood. He stopped and turned to face her fully. One more thing, he said quietly. No one touches you. If anyone tries, you come to me immediately. Something in his tone made her believe him. The meeting began an hour later. 3 men arrived, older, expensive watches, smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They spoke in half-sentences, coded language, business wrapped in threat. Claire stayed quiet, exactly where Marco told her to stand. She noticed things, how Marco never raised his voice, how others waited for him to finish speaking before they spoke again, how power, real power, didn't hurry. Halfway through the meeting, one of the men leaned close and whispered something into Marco's ear. Marco's jaw tightened. The temperature in the room dropped. The meeting ended abruptly. We're leaving, Marco said. Claire's heart jumped. Did I do something wrong? No, he replied. Someone noticed you. The words hit harder than she expected. Who? Someone who shouldn't have. The elevator ride down felt different, heavier. Outside, Vince, one of Marco's men, waited. We intercepted a call, Vince said. A name came up. Marco's eyes sharpened. Which one? Adrian Cole. Claire didn't know the name, but her body reacted anyway. Why does he care about me? She asked. He doesn't, Marco said. He cares about me, and anything connected to me. Silence. You're not walking alone anymore, Marco added. If I'm not with you, my men are. That feel extreme, Claire whispered. That's survival. The SUV stopped outside her apartment. Marco didn't get out. "Tomorrow," he said, eyes steady on hers, "we talk about new arrangements." "Arrangements," she echoed. "You won't stay here much longer." She stared at him. "You don't get to decide that." "I do if it keeps you alive." The words followed her all the way upstairs. That night Claire slept with the lights on, because somewhere out there a man named Adrian Cole had learned her name. Claire knew something was wrong the moment she walked into Riverside Grill the next morning. Not because of the customers, not because of the clatter of plates or the hiss of the coffee machine. It was the way everyone else felt it too. Marcus moved slower behind the grill. Kayla kept glancing at the windows. Even the regulars spoke in lower voices, like the diner itself was listening. Claire tied her apron, forcing her hands to stop shaking. "You're safe," she told herself. "You're just tired." The bell over the door rang. Claire didn't look up right away. She grabbed a mug, turned, and froze. He wasn't Marco. That much was obvious immediately. This man smiled too easily. He wore a tailored jacket that didn't belong in this neighborhood, hairstyle just enough to look effortless. Eyes sharp and curious, like he was enjoying a private joke. He slid onto a stool at the counter as if he owned it. "Claire Morgan," he said warmly. Her heart dropped. "Do I know you?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral. "No," he replied, "but I know you." Kayla stiffened beside her. "I'm Adrian," the man added casually. "Coffee?" Claire poured it with careful hands. "How did you know my name?" she asked. Adrian chuckled. "You're memorable." Her instincts screamed. "You work for Marco DeLuca," he said, watching her reaction closely. "I work here." "Cute answer," he said. "Not honest." Claire met his eyes. "You shouldn't be talking to me." "Oh, I know exactly who I should and shouldn't talk to," Adrian replied. "That's why I'm here." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Does he treat you well?" Her pulse spiked. "This conversation is over." "Is it?" he asked softly. "Because from where I'm standing, you just walked into a war without knowing the rules." She swallowed. "I'm not part of anything." Adrian smiled wider. "That's what makes you useful." The word landed like a slap. Kayla moved closer. "Hey man, you done with your coffee?" Adrian ignored her. "You know what Marco doesn't do?" he asked Claire. "He doesn't get attached." Her chest tightened. "He doesn't bring waitresses into his world, doesn't move them around, doesn't protect them." Claire said nothing. "So when he does," Adrian continued, "it means one of two things." "What?" she asked quietly. "He either wants something from you, or you already matter more than you should." He stood, sliding cash onto the counter. "Tell Marco I said hello." Then almost gently he added, "If he keeps you this close, you're going to get hurt. One way or another." The bell rang as he left. Kayla grabbed Claire's arm. "Who the hell was that?" Claire whispered. "The reason Marco won't let me walk alone." That evening, Claire didn't need to call Marco. A black car waited across the street when her shift ended. The back door opened. Marco's expression wasn't calm this time. "Get in." Inside the car, silence pressed down hard. "You spoke to Adrian," Marco said. "Yes." "What did he say?" She told him everything. When she finished, Marco leaned back, jaw tight. "He's testing boundaries." "He knows my name," Claire whispered. "He knew where I work." "Yes." Fear twisted into anger. "So what now?" "You move," Marco said. "Tonight." Her breath caught. "To where?" "My penthouse." That's not a suggestion, she realized. "No." She looked at him. "Why are you really doing this?" Marco hesitated, just enough. "Because Adrian won't touch you if you're with me." "And if I don't want that kind of protection?" He met her gaze. Then you won't survive what's coming. The car pulled away from the diner. Claire stared out the window, heart racing, because she finally understood something terrifying. The scratch on the car hadn't started this. Her name had. Claire had never been this high above the city. The elevator opened directly into Marco De Luca's penthouse, and for a moment she forgot how to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped the space in light and skyline. Polished stone floors reflected the city like water. Everything was quiet, controlled, perfect, and nothing about it felt like home. "You'll stay in the guest room," Marco said, gesturing down a wide hallway. "It locks from the inside. No one comes up here without my approval." She nodded, clutching her bag. "Safe," he added. The word felt heavy. She dropped her things in the room. The bed was too large. The sheets smelled clean, untouched. Her entire life fit into one duffel bag sitting on a designer rug. Marco gave her space. Too much, maybe. "Rules," he said from the doorway. "You don't leave alone. You don't answer the door unless it's me. If you feel watched, you tell me." "And if I want to go outside?" she asked. His jaw tightened. "You don't." That should have scared her more than it did. Later, unable to sleep, Claire wandered into the kitchen. Marco stood there alone, sleeves rolled up, staring out at the city with a glass of water in his hand. He looked human, tired, not the man who commanded rooms. "You okay?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "This feels unreal." "It will feel normal eventually," he said. "People adapt." "Do you want me to?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Before the silence could grow heavier, his phone rang. He listened. Once, twice. His expression hardened. "They're circling your old block," he said, asking questions. Her stomach dropped. "About me?" "Yes." Fear surged. "So this isn't temporary?" "No." She hugged her arms around herself. "Am I a problem?" Marco stepped closer, his voice lowered. "You are the reason he showed his hand." That night, Claire lay awake listening to the city hum below, because for the first time she understood something worse than danger. She was no longer invisible. Sleep refused to come. The penthouse was too quiet, too big. Every sound echoed, her own breathing, the distant hum of traffic far below, the soft tick of something mechanical she couldn't place. Claire slipped out of the guest room sometime after midnight. She told herself she just needed water. She found Marco in the living room, standing near the windows, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, controlled, but edged with something sharper than before. "No," he said. "Not yet. If he moves, I want to see it coming." He ended the call and turned. "You should be sleeping," he said. "I tried." He studied her for a moment. No jacket, just a dark t-shirt, hair slightly damp, tension visible in the set of his shoulders. "Sit," he said, motioning to the couch. She did. He stayed standing, arms crossed, watching her like he was measuring distance, physical and otherwise. "You're scared," he said. "Yes." "Good," he replied. "Fear keeps you alive." She looked up at him. "You say that like it's a comfort." "It's not," he said. "It's a warning." Silence stretched. "Why does Adrian hate you?" she asked. Marco hesitated. "History. That's not an answer. It's the only one you get tonight." She nodded, disappointed but not surprised. "I heard you say earlier that if I stay close, nothing happens to me." His eyes darkened slightly. "That wasn't a line." "I need to know if you mean that," she said, "or if I'm just standing where you need me." Something shifted in him. He moved closer, slowly, deliberately, stopping just short of touching her. "I don't make promises I can't keep," he said quietly, "and I don't protect things I don't value." Her heart slammed against her ribs. The space between them felt charged, heavy, alive. He lifted a hand, hesitated, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek, careful, restrained. The touch sent a shock through her entire body. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said softly. "I'm not," she whispered. And that was the truth. For one suspended moment, the world narrowed to breath and heat and the silent pull between them. Her gaze flicked to his mouth. His eyes followed. He leaned in, just an inch. Then his phone rang. The sound shattered everything. Marco pulled back instantly, jaw tightening as he answered. "What?" A pause. "Where?" He ended the call and turned to her, all warmth gone. "Get your shoes," he said. "What happened?" "Adrian's men were spotted near your street, again." Her blood ran cold. "They're looking for you," she swallowed. "So what do we do?" Marco stepped closer, grip firm but gentle on her arm. "You stay with me," he said. "Every second." She nodded, because whatever line they had almost crossed. The war, had already crossed them. Claire didn't mean to wake up, at least not fully. At first it was just sound. Muffled, distant, pressing against the edge of sleep like fingers against glass. Low male voices, not arguing, not calm either, something in between. Controlled tension. She lay still in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, heart slowly accelerating. Marco had said his men stayed on lower floors. So why were their voices this close? She slipped out of bed, bare feet silent against the polished floor, and cracked the door open just enough to see the hallway. Light spilled from Marco's office. The door was ajar. She took one careful step forward. "He's not testing anymore," a voice said. Vince. She recognized it instantly. Walking into the diner was a message. "He wants her visible." Claire's stomach tightened. Another voice answered. Older, colder, one of Marco's senior men. "Then we use it." She froze. "She's the pressure point," the man continued. "Adrian doesn't care about her personally. He cares about what she represents: access, reaction, weakness." Claire's chest felt too tight to breathe. Vince exhaled sharply. "She's not going to like that." There was a pause. Then Marco spoke. "She doesn't need to like it." His voice was calm. Too calm. "She needs to stay where I put her." The words landed like a physical blow. Claire's hand slid against the wall to steady herself. "Let him think he has an opening," the other man said. "He'll move faster. When he does, we close the trap." "Using her," Vince muttered. "You sure that's smart?" Marco didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was lower. "She's already involved, whether she understands it or not. The difference is whether she's protected while it happens." Protected. Claire swallowed hard. To them, it sounded strategic. To her, it sounded like a cage. "She doesn't need details," Marco added. "If she knows everything, she'll try to control it. She'll sacrifice herself, thinking she's doing the right thing." Silence followed. Then Vince said quietly, "You're gambling with her trust." Another pause. Longer this time. "I know," Marco said. That was it. Claire backed away from the door slowly, every nerve screaming. She shut herself inside the guest room and leaned against it, breath shaking, pulse roaring in her ears. So that was it. She wasn't just being protected, she was being positioned. Every rule, every restriction, every stay close. Not just safety, strategy. Her hands curled into fists. She had walked into this world by accident. A scratch, a note, a choice. But now she understood something she hadn't before. She was no longer making choices. By morning, fear had burned itself into something sharper. Anger. Marco knocked on her door just after 9. "Claire." She opened it. He looked composed. Fresh shirt. Controlled posture. The same man who had almost kissed her hours ago. You didn't sleep, he said. I heard you, she replied. He went still. In your office. A flicker crossed his face, not surprise, calculation. How much did you hear? He asked. Enough. They stood there, the city stretching silently behind him. You said I'm an opening, she continued, that I just need to stay where you put me. He didn't deny it. That conversation wasn't meant for you. That doesn't make it less true. Silence thickened between them. You're using Adrian's interest in me, she said. You're letting him think I'm leverage. I'm preventing him from taking you, Marco replied. There's a difference. Not to me. She stepped back. I didn't agree to be bait. You didn't agree to be hunted either, he shot back. But here we are. Her chest hurt. So which is it? She asked quietly. Do you care about me, or am I just convenient? The question hung between them, heavy and unavoidable. Marco looked at her for a long moment. Then he said the one answer that hurt worse than a lie. Both. Something inside her cracked. She nodded once. Thank you for being honest. Then she turned away. She started packing. Claire packed like someone running from a fire. Not carefully, not neatly. Fast. Her hands moved on instinct, shoving clothes into the duffel bag she'd carried into Marco's penthouse. The same bag that now felt laughably small compared to the weight of what surrounded her. Every sound outside the room made her flinch. Footsteps, distant voices, the hum of the city through sealed glass. Her phone lay on the bed, no messages, no missed calls. Nothing from a life that suddenly felt very far away. I am not staying where he puts me. The sentence repeated in her head like a heartbeat. She knew it was reckless. She knew Marco was probably right about the danger. She knew Adrian didn't forget names, faces, or opportunities. But she also knew this. If she stayed, she would disappear in a quieter way. Her freedom would be managed. Her fear would be calculated. Her choices would belong to someone else. She zipped the bag, slung it over her shoulder, and moved to the door. Locked. Of course. Her jaw tightened. She scanned the room, eyes landing on the window. Floor-to-ceiling glass. City far below. And along the side of the building, barely visible, a narrow service ledge that connected to the emergency stairwell. Her pulse spiked. This is insane. So was staying. She cracked the window open. Cold air rushed in, sharp and real. She climbed out slowly, fingers gripping the frame until her knuckles went white. The ledge was narrower than she expected, concrete biting through the soles of her shoes. She moved sideways, inch by inch, heart pounding so loud she was sure someone would hear it. Don't look down. Don't freeze. Just move. The metal door to the stairwell loomed ahead. She reached it, pulled. It opened. Claire slipped inside and shut it behind her, chest heaving. Down, down, down. Flight after flight of concrete steps blurred together as adrenaline carried her. By the time she reached ground level, her legs burned and her lungs screamed. She pushed through the side exit into an alley. Freedom hit her like a shock. Noise, traffic, people, real air. She pulled up her hood and walked fast, head down, turning corners at random, trying to become anonymous again. She counted cash in her pocket as she moved. Enough for a bus, maybe a cheap motel, just one night. Just time to think. A black car slowed beside her. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. The window rolled down. Well, a familiar voice said pleasantly, this is unexpected. Her blood turned to ice. Adrian Cole stepped out of the car like this was a casual meeting. Relaxed, amused. His eyes swept over her bag, her posture, her face. You really shouldn't walk alone, he said. Leave me alone, Claire snapped, stepping back. He smiled wider. You left Marco's tower, he said. That means two things. Either you're braver than I thought, or you're smarter. She turned to walk away. His hand closed, around her arm. Fast, firm. Don't, she hissed. Relax, Adrian said softly. I just want to talk. A van pulled up behind her. The sound shattered the street. Two men stepped out, big, silent, efficient. Fear slammed through her body. You don't have to do this, she said, voice breaking. Adrian leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. If you had stayed where he put you, this would have taken longer, he murmured. But you walked right into my hands. That saves time. She fought, kicked, twisted, scratched. Strong arms locked around her from behind. A hand clamped over her mouth as she tried to scream. The street spun. The van door slid open. Darkness swallowed her as she was shoved inside. The last thought that burned through her mind wasn't fear. It was understanding. She had finally made her own choice, and Adrian had been waiting for it. Claire came back to consciousness in pieces. First pain, a dull throb in her wrists and shoulders. Then sound, the low rumble of voices, the echo of something metallic. Then smell, oil, dust, old wood, something faintly burned. Her head pounded. When the hood was yanked off, the light stabbed into her eyes hard enough to make her gasp. She blinked rapidly, vision swimming until the world snapped into focus. A warehouse, large, mostly empty. Steel beams disappearing into shadow. High windows coated in grime, letting in thin slashes of gray daylight. Men stood near the walls, armed, quiet, watching her like she was inventory. And in the center of it all, Adrian. He stood with his hands in his pockets, relaxed, almost bored, like he was waiting for coffee rather than overseeing a kidnapping. Easy, he said calmly. You're safe, for now. Claire tried to sit up. Her wrists were tied, but not painfully tight, enough to remind her of the imbalance. You're insane, she said hoarsely. Adrian smiled. That's subjective. I prefer prepared. He circled her slowly, studying her face, the way she held herself, the fear she tried and failed to hide. You surprised me, he continued, running from Marco like that. Most people cling to him once he pulls them in. I didn't run to you, she snapped. No, Adrian agreed. You ran from control. That's different and dangerous. She glared at him. You abducted me to have a therapy session? He chuckled. No. I abducted you to talk about the man you think you know. Her chest tightened. I don't care about your war. You should, Adrian said lightly, because your name was in it long before you scratched his car. Her breath hitched. What are you talking about? Adrian stopped in front of her. Your father, he said. The word landed wrong, too casual, too sharp. My father is dead, Claire said, and he had nothing to do with you. Adrian tilted his head. Debt has a long memory. Her pulse hammered. You're lying. Am I? He asked. Ask yourself why Marco looked at that security footage like he'd seen a ghost. She froze. You remember men coming to your apartment when you were a kid, Adrian continued softly. Raised voices, fear. Your father standing in front of you like a shield. Her throat went dry. I was 8, she whispered. I remember yelling, guns. Yes, Adrian said, and you remember him. Her heart slammed. I don't remember faces, she said quickly. But he does, Adrian replied. He remembered yours. Silence swallowed the room. You see, Adrian continued, crouching to her level. Marco De Luca didn't just meet you last week, he recognized you. That's not true, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. He was there, Adrian said. When your father's debt came due, when orders were given. Her stomach churned. He didn't pull the trigger, Adrian added smoothly. He likes to say that makes him different. Claire's eyes burned. So why are you telling me this? She asked. What do you want? Adrian smiled, slow and deliberate. "I want you to look at him," he said, "and feel confused." He stood and nodded to one of his men. "Put her in the office," he ordered. "No one touches her." A metal door opened. She was dragged inside a smaller room, bare except for a chair and a barred window high on the wall. The door slammed shut. Alone, Claire slid down the wall, arms wrapped around herself, breathing hard. Marco had history with her family. Adrian knew it. And if even half of this was true, then the man protecting her wasn't just guarding her future, he was guarding his past. The warehouse changed before the first shot was fired. Claire felt it before she heard anything. A shift in the air, a tightening like the building itself had stopped breathing. The men outside the office door moved differently now. Faster, more alert, no casual murmurs, no laughter. Something was coming. She rose slowly from the floor, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Her wrists were free now. Adrian had ordered the ropes removed, but the metal door was solid, the lock heavy. She pressed her ear against it, catching fragments of sound, footsteps, sharp voices, then silence, too clean, too deliberate. And then the explosion came from the opposite side of the warehouse. Metal screamed as the main door was forced inward. Gunfire erupted instantly, deafening, chaotic, ripping through the open space with brutal force. Men shouted, someone screamed. Claire stumbled back, hands flying to her ears. This wasn't a warning. This was an execution in motion. Outside the office, boots thundered past. A body hit the wall hard enough to rattle the door. She smelled gunpowder now. Acrid, unmistakable. Marco. The realization hit her so hard her knees almost buckled. He had found her. The office door flew open. A man rushed in, not Adrian's. Dark tactical vest, blood on his sleeve. "Clear!" he shouted. Before Claire could react, Marco DeLuca stepped through the doorway. Gun raised, eyes cold, shirt already stained red at the side. For a split second, the entire world narrowed to just the two of them. "Emily." He stopped himself. "Claire." She stared at him, breath shaking. "You came," she said stupidly. "There was never a question," he replied. Another burst of gunfire echoed behind him. Vince appeared at his shoulder, firing down the corridor. "Adrian's moving!" Vince shouted. "East exit!" Marco turned back to Claire. "Stay behind me," he ordered. She didn't argue. They moved together through the warehouse, Marco in front, body angled to shield her, gun steady, movements precise. This wasn't the man from the penthouse. This was someone older, sharper, made of violence and discipline. A man lunged from behind a crate. Marco shot him without slowing down. Claire flinched but didn't scream. She couldn't. Her body was too full of adrenaline and fear and something darker. Understanding. They reached the center of the warehouse just as Adrian stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, clapping slowly. "Well done," Adrian said, smiling. "Right on time." His men were gone or down. Blood stained the floor. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. "You always did have a flair for drama," Adrian continued. "Breaking down doors, saving girls." Marco raised his gun. "Let her go." Adrian laughed. "She's not tied, Marco. She's choosing to stand there." Claire's chest tightened. "Is it true?" she asked suddenly. Both men froze. "Did you know my father?" she demanded, eyes locked on Marco. "Were you there?" Adrian's smile widened. Marco didn't answer right away. "Yes," he said finally. "I was." Her breath caught. "But I didn't give the order," he continued. "I arrived late. The debt wasn't mine." When you saw me what?" she whispered. He swallowed. "I stopped it. I sent them away." Adrian scoffed. "After you showed up with guns." Marco's voice hardened. I was younger. I didn't run things then. You still terrified a child, Adrian snapped. Silence fell heavy and raw. Claire's vision blurred. You remembered me, she said to Marco. Yes, and you didn't tell me. I didn't know how, he said quietly. Or if you'd even want to hear it. Adrian stepped closer, eyes bright. See, he said to Claire. He doesn't save people, he claims them. Marco shifted instantly, placing himself between Adrian and Claire. Don't, he warned. Adrian smiled. That was when one of his remaining men lunged from the shadows, grabbing Claire from behind, gun pressed to her ribs. Drop it, the man shouted. Everything slowed. Marco didn't hesitate. Let her go, he said calmly. Shoot me. Claire screamed his name. The man tightened his grip. A gunshot cracked the air. Pain exploded through Marco's side. He staggered, blood spreading fast across his shirt, but he fired back instantly. 2 shots. Clean. The man dropped. Claire fell forward as Marco caught her, pulling her down behind a crate as bullets echoed one last time, and then silence. Marco collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. No, no, no! Claire pressed her hands to his wound, panic surging. Stay with me. He grabbed her wrist, steady despite the pain. Look at me, he said. She did. I told you, he whispered. Don't run. Tears blurred her vision as sirens grew louder. Adrian was gone. The warehouse was burning with red and blue light, and Claire understood one final terrible truth. The man she trusted had just taken a bullet for her, and that changed everything. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and quiet panic. Claire sat rigid in the chair beside the bed, hands folded so tightly in her lap that her fingers ached. Machines hummed softly around Marco De Luca, measuring a body that had never needed permission to keep going before tonight. Now it did. He lay unconscious, color drained from his face, a thick white bandage wrapped around his side, tubes, wires, steady beeps. Proof that even men like him bled. Vince stood near the window, arms crossed, jaw tight. The bullet missed anything vital, he said quietly for the 3rd time. Doctor says he'll wake up. Claire nodded, though she barely heard him. Shoot me. The words replayed over and over in her mind. He hadn't hesitated, he hadn't negotiated, he hadn't calculated, he'd stepped forward. And taken the hit. Adrian? She asked finally. Vince shook his head. Gone, but not finished. Her stomach clenched. What happens now? She whispered. Vince looked at her for a long moment before answering. Now, he said, you stop pretending this ends when Marco wakes up. She swallowed hard. The door opened softly. A doctor stepped in, checked the monitors, nodded once. He's stable, the doctor said. You can stay, but no stress. Claire almost laughed at that. When Marco finally stirred, it was slow, subtle, a tightening of his fingers, a shallow breath that caught. Her heart jumped. Marco, she whispered. His eyes opened gradually, unfocused at first. Then they found her, and everything else faded. You're still here, he said hoarsely. She nodded. You didn't give me much choice. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before pain pulled it away. You should have run, he murmured. Her chest tightened. You told me not to. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. I failed you, he said. She shook her head fiercely. You saved me. That doesn't erase the rest, he replied quietly. Silence settled between them, heavy but no longer hostile. I heard what Adrian said, she said. About my father. Marco's jaw tensed. I was there, he said again, and I wish I hadn't been. But you stopped it. Yes. But you were still part of that world. Yes. She exhaled slowly. So were you protecting me? Or your guilt? He looked at her then. Really looked. Both, he said. At first. Her heart pounded. And now? He didn't answer immediately. When I saw you in that diner, he said instead, I thought I was looking at a memory, a life that could have gone very differently. I told myself I was just fixing something old. He swallowed. And then you looked at me like I wasn't a monster. Tears burned her eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. I know. She leaned forward slightly. If I stay, I need the truth. All of it. No positioning. No stay where I put you. His gaze sharpened despite the pain. If you stay, he said, you won't be protected from this world anymore. She nodded. I won't be blind either. Vince cleared his throat softly. Boss, that's not a small thing. Marco didn't look away from her. She already crossed the line, he said. I won't drag her back pretending it's safety. Claire felt something settle inside her. Fear, yes, but also resolve. Adrian isn't done, she said. He told me he wants me to hurt when you do. Marco's eyes darkened. He won't touch you again. How do you know? Because, he said quietly, next time I won't just react. She held his gaze. And what am I supposed to do? For the first time since she met him, Marco answered without command or control. You decide, he said. Stay, walk away, fight, hide. She thought of the diner, the scratch, the note. She thought of the van door closing. And the moment he stepped in front of a gun for her. I'm done hiding, she said. Something fierce and unreadable crossed his face. Then, Marco said, you don't stand behind me anymore. Her pulse spiked. What does that mean? It means, he replied, if Adrian comes again, you won't be the opening. She met his eyes. You'll be the reason he loses. Marco's recovery was not dramatic. There were no inspirational speeches, no sudden miracles, just pain, discipline, and silence. Claire stayed, not because he asked her to, because leaving now would have been another kind of lie. The penthouse changed its rhythm around his injury. Fewer meetings upstairs, more guarded conversations behind closed doors. Men came and went quietly, respectful, tense. The war hadn't paused. It had simply moved underground. Claire noticed everything. She noticed how Marco walked differently now, favoring his side, never acknowledging it. How Vince positioned himself half a step closer to her than before. How security doubled without announcement. One morning, 3 days after the hospital, Marco found her in the kitchen staring out at the city. You're awake early, he said. I didn't sleep, she replied. Again. He nodded like that made sense. Come with me, he said. To where? Downstairs. She hesitated. Is this another stay where I put you moment? His jaw tightened slightly. No, he said. This is a see what you're standing in moment. The elevator descended past private floors, past luxury, past distance. When the doors opened, the air felt different, cooler, heavier, concrete, steel. Men training in silence, a secure level. Vince waited there, along with 2 others Claire recognized, but had never spoken to. Claire, Marco said calmly, this is the part of my world I didn't want you near. Her pulse quickened. Why show me now? Because Adrian already did, Marco replied, and I won't insult you by pretending otherwise. They walked past shooting lanes, locked rooms, digital maps glowing softly on screens. No chaos, no shouting, just preparation. Fear thrives in the unknown, Marco continued. Control thrives in information. He stopped in front of a table laid out with phones, documents, photos. Adrian Cole, different angles, different years, different cities. He doesn't attack randomly, Marco said. He studies patterns. He waits for reactions. Claire stared at the images. He said I was a pressure point. You were, Marco said. Not anymore. She looked at him sharply. Why? Because pressure points don't survive once they understand the game. Vince spoke up. If you're staying, you learn the basics. Situational awareness. What to do if you're followed, who to call if I'm not there. Claire blinked. You're training me? Marco met her gaze. I'm preparing you. The first lesson was simple. Notice exits, Vince said as they moved through a simulated room. Not where you enter, where you leave. The second was harder. Fear lies, Marco told her quietly. It tells you to freeze or run blindly. You learn to pause instead. Days passed. Claire learned to read rooms the way she once read customers at the diner. Who watched too closely, who avoided eye contact, who lingered without reason. She learned how to disappear into crowds without panicking. She learned that control didn't always come from strength. Sometimes it came from stillness. One evening after a long session, she sat on the edge of the training mat, exhausted. I never wanted this, she said. Marco sat beside her, careful with his movement. Neither did I, he replied. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. She looked at him. Do you regret telling me? No, he said immediately. Then softer, I regret not telling you sooner. Silence stretched, but it was different now. Not heavy, grounded. What happens when Adrian realizes I'm not scared anymore? She asked. Marco's eyes darkened. Then he makes mistakes. She exhaled slowly. And me? You stop being a liability, he said, and start becoming something else. Her pulse quickened. What? A variable, he answered. She met his gaze, steady. I don't want to be used, she said. You won't be, Marco replied. Not again. She believed him, not because he promised, but because for the first time he wasn't standing in front of her. He was standing beside her. Adrian Cole noticed the silence first. Not the absence of noise, the absence of reaction. For days after the warehouse, his people watched. They waited for panic, for movement, for grief, for the predictable patterns that followed trauma. They got nothing. Claire Morgan didn't flee the city, didn't hide, didn't break. She stayed exactly where she was, and that unsettled him. Still no sign? Adrian asked casually, leaning back in a leather chair inside one of his offices downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows, neutral colors, a space designed to feel clean, respectable, harmless. His man shook his head. She's quiet. No hospital visits after DeLuca was released. No attempts to contact family, no travel bookings. Adrian smiled faintly. She's being managed, he said. He's keeping her wrapped up and obedient. The smile faded just as quickly. But that won't last. Claire stood alone at the edge of the city, watching the river churn under gray skies. Marco didn't know she was here. That was the point. She'd followed every rule for weeks. Training, observation, listening, learning. She'd let them believe she was still adjusting, still absorbing, still being guided. And then she asked one simple question. What would Adrian expect me to do? Marco had paused. Nothing, he answered. Or something reckless. She nodded. So I'll do neither. Now she waited. Her phone vibrated once in her pocket. A single message. Unknown number. You shouldn't be alone. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned and walked into a small, unremarkable cafe across the street. Sat at the counter, ordered coffee, let herself be seen. The second message came 5 minutes later. You're testing limits. She smiled slightly. Good, she thought. She paid in cash and left through the back door. 2 blocks later, she changed direction. Then again. She moved like she'd been taught. Not fast, not slow, just deliberate. She felt eyes on her, distant but present. She stopped at a public library, waited. Then her phone rang. Adrian, she answered. You're bored, he said. Not a question. I'm done hiding, she replied calmly. A pause. Not long, but real. You think DeLuca made you strong, Adrian said. No, she answered. I think you underestimated me. He laughed softly. Careful. This ends badly for brave girls. For predictable men, too, she said. Another pause. Longer. You're alone, Adrian said. That's a mistake. No, Claire replied. That's your assumption. She ended the call. When she stepped outside, Vince was across the street pretending to check his phone. Marco's men were closer than Adrian's. She hadn't been reckless. She'd been precise. That night, Marco confronted her. You moved without telling me, he said, voice controlled but tight. Yes. You made contact. Yes. You could have been taken. I wasn't, she said evenly, because I knew what he'd do. Marco stared at her, anger flickering beneath something else, pride. He reached out first, she continued. That means he's reacting now. Silence stretched. You broke pattern, Marco said finally. I became one, she replied. His jaw tightened. I don't like you being exposed. I don't like being invisible, she shot back. He exhaled slowly. You scared him. Good. Marco studied her for a long moment. You know what happens next, he said. Yes, she replied. He escalates. And you? She met his gaze, steady. I don't. A faint, dangerous smile touched Marco's lips. Then, he said, we stopped playing defense. Outside, the city moved on unaware, but somewhere across town, Adrian Cole was no longer smiling, because the girl he thought was leverage had just become something far worse. An unknown. The call came at 6:17 a.m. Claire was awake already. She'd learned to wake before fear did. Her phone buzzed once on the nightstand. Unknown number. No name. No warning. She answered without speaking. Good morning, Claire, Adrian said pleasantly. I hope I didn't wake you. Her chest tightened, but her voice stayed steady. You're early? Yes, he replied. I had a productive night. Something in his tone made the room feel colder. What do you want? She asked. To show you something, Adrian said. Because I think you misunderstand how this works. A pause. Turn on the TV. Her stomach dropped. She didn't move. Any channel, he added. Local news. Claire reached for the remote with shaking fingers and turned the television on. The screen filled with flashing red and blue lights. Breaking news crawled across the bottom. Early morning fire destroys Riverside Grill. Cause under investigation. Claire stopped breathing. The camera showed the diner she'd worked in for years, windows blown out, smoke curling into the pale morning sky, firefighters moving through blackened debris. The familiar sign hung crooked, half-melted. No, she whispered. Adrian listened. An accident, he said lightly. Electrical maybe, old wiring. Those places go up fast. Her heart pounded violently. Marcus, Kayla, were they? They weren't inside, Adrian interrupted. I'm not a monster, I made sure of that. Tears burned her eyes. But, he continued calmly, they won't be opening again. She sank onto the edge of the bed, numb. Why? She demanded. They had nothing to do with this. They had everything to do with it, Adrian said. They were part of you. Her hands trembled. You wanted to be visible, he went on. You wanted to be unpredictable. So I removed something you thought was safe. She swallowed hard. This doesn't scare me, it just proves what you are. Adrian laughed softly. No, it proves what you are now. Someone with consequences. The line went dead. Minutes later, Marco was at her door. He didn't knock. He took one look at her face and knew. What did he do? He asked. She pointed at the TV. The room went very still. Marco watched the footage in silence, jaw tight, eyes darkening with something colder than anger. He crossed a line, he said finally. He did it because of me. Claire whispered. No, Marco corrected. He did it because you hurt his control. She stood, wiping her eyes roughly. This ends now. Marco turned to her sharply. Careful. I'm done being collateral, she said. He took my past, my job, my life before you. Silence stretched between them, then Marco said something she didn't expect. He wants you to react. I know. And you still want to move? Yes. He studied her for a long moment, not as someone to protect, but as someone choosing the fight. Then you don't do it emotionally, Marco said. You do it precisely. That afternoon, Claire went to see Marcus. The diner was gone, reduced to wet ash and broken glass. Marcus stood near the caution tape, staring like he'd lost a limb. They say it was an accident, he muttered, but accidents don't feel like this. Claire hugged him tightly. I'm sorry, she whispered. As she walked away, something hardened inside her. Adrian hadn't just attacked her. He'd erased the last piece of who she used to be. That night, Marco laid out the truth. Adrian's expanding, he said, pointing to a map spread across the table. New investors, new fronts, he's getting sloppy. Because he's angry, Claire said. Yes. And angry men want witnesses. Marco looked at her sharply. You have something in mind? I do, she replied. He wants me emotional, so I'll give him calm. She leaned over the map. You said he studies patterns, she continued, so let's give him one he can't ignore. Marco watched her closely. You understand what you're asking. I do. Outside, the city lights flickered, and somewhere across town, Adrian Cole was smiling. Because he thought he'd broken her. He had no idea he'd just burned the last thing holding her back. Claire didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, because her mind wouldn't slow down. The diner was gone. The life before the scratch, gone with it. Adrian had made sure of that. He'd taken away the last place where she'd been just a girl with tired eyes and a coffee pot in her hand. Now there was nothing left to protect. Only something to finish. At sunrise, Marco found her sitting at the long table in the penthouse, the city still half asleep beyond the windows. Papers were spread out in front of her, notes, timelines, names Vince had given her, details she'd memorized instead of fearing. You're planning, Marco said. Yes. You should be resting. She looked up at him. If I stop moving, I start feeling. He didn't argue. He poured coffee and sat across from her, careful, deliberate, like he was approaching something volatile. Tell me, he said. Claire slid one sheet toward him. Adrian wants witnesses, she said. He wants to be seen winning. He wants me to break in public, not disappear quietly. Marco's eyes scanned the page. This location, a charity fundraiser, Claire finished. High profile, clean optics, politicians, donors, cameras, he'll be there. He won't make a move in a place like that, Marco said. Not violently, she agreed, but he doesn't need violence, he just needs control. Marco leaned back slightly, studying her. You'd be visible, he said. Exposed. Yes. Adrian would assume you came alone. Yes. And you're counting on that. She nodded. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Marco said quietly, You understand what happens if this goes wrong. I do, Claire replied. I also understand what happens if we don't end it. He didn't like it. She could see it in the tension of his jaw, the way his fingers tightened around the coffee cup. You're asking me to let you walk into his line of sight, he said. I'm asking you to trust me, she answered. He met her gaze. That's dangerous, he said. So is loving control, she replied. The word hung there. Marco didn't deny it. Instead, he stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city that had taken so much from both of them. When I met you again, he said slowly, I told myself I was correcting an old mistake. He turned back to her. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being that. She felt her chest tighten. I won't put you back in a cage, he continued. Even a golden one. She exhaled, shaky. So you'll let me do this? No, Marco said. Her heart sank. I'll do it with you, he finished. They stood there for a moment, the space between them charged but steady. That night, Claire chose her dress carefully. Simple, black, elegant. Nothing that screamed for attention, everything that invited it. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Not because she looked powerful, but because she looked calm. Marco watched her from the doorway. You don't look afraid, he said. I am, she replied. I'm just not letting it drive. He stepped closer, adjusting the clasp at the back of her neck with careful fingers. If at any moment you want out, I won't, she said softly. His hand lingered for half a second longer than necessary. This ends, Adrian, Marco said. One way or another? Yes, Claire replied. But tonight, it starts with me. The fundraiser buzzed with quiet money and polished smiles. Security was discreet but present. Cameras flashed. Names were exchanged like currency. Claire entered alone. She felt it immediately. The shift. Adrian saw her the moment she stepped inside. She felt his eyes before she found his face. He stood near the bar, perfectly at ease, glass in hand, smile already forming as if he'd been waiting for her. He approached slowly, applause and conversation humming around them like camouflage. You came, he said warmly. I was hoping you would. She met his gaze without flinching. You burned my past, she said, so I came to watch you fail. His smile sharpened. You think DeLuca let you do this? She leaned in just enough for him to hear. He didn't let me, she whispered. He trusts me. For the first time, something flickered in Adrian's eyes. Uncertainty. He laughed it off quickly. Careful, Claire. Big rooms make small people feel brave. She smiled back. Then watch closely, she said. This is the part where you underestimate me. Across the room, Marco watched from the shadows, expression unreadable, every contingency already in motion. The trap was set, and for the first time since this began, Adrian Cole was standing exactly where Claire wanted him. The room was full of money pretending to be kindness. Crystal glasses clinked softly. Laughter came in measured doses. Cameras flashed at angles designed to flatter power, not truth. The fundraiser looked exactly like what it was, a stage where reputations were polished and sins were hidden behind donations. Claire moved through it calmly. No hesitation, no searching. She didn't need to look for Adrian anymore. He came to her. You know, Adrian said, walking beside her as if they were old friends, this ends one of two ways. She glanced at him. You talking to me or to yourself? He smiled thinly. You think this room protects you? I think, she replied evenly. You wouldn't have come if you weren't already exposed. That was when his phone vibrated once, twice. He didn't check it. That was his mistake. Across the room, Marco stood near a column, invisible to everyone except the people who knew how to see him. Vince was already moving. So were three others. Quiet, controlled, legal warrants folded neatly in jacket pockets. Not guns, paper, the kind Adrian hated. You feel it yet? Claire asked. Adrian stopped walking. Feel what? He asked, irritation edging his voice. The moment, she said, turning to face him fully, when your confidence turns into curiosity. His jaw tightened. You think DeLuca did this? He scoffed. Dragged me into a public place to embarrass me? No, Claire replied. I did. That finally got his full attention. I didn't come here to break, she continued. I came to end the part where you control the story. Behind Adrian, a man in a tailored suit approached, not security, not staff, federal. Adrian Cole, the man said calmly. We need to speak with you. Adrian laughed once, sharp, forced. You have no jurisdiction, another man stepped forward. Actually, he said, we do. Money laundering, racketeering, arson tied to commercial insurance fraud. Adrian's smile didn't fade, but his eyes flicked, just once, toward the exit. Blocked. Claire leaned in close, her voice low. You wanted witnesses, she said. You got them. The handcuffs clicked shut. Around them, conversation faltered. Cameras turned, whispers spread fast. Adrian looked at her one last time, rage finally cracking through his composure. This doesn't end me, he hissed. Men like me don't end. Claire held his gaze steady. No, she said, but you lose the part where you decide who bleeds. As he was led away, Marco finally stepped into view. Their eyes met. No victory, no relief, just understanding.